Today, we're diving into how one single, absolutely horrific case became the catalyst that forced an entire nation to rewrite its laws on women's safety. This is the story of what's known as the Nirbhaya effect, and it's a story of a massive, and I mean massive, legal transformation.
So, picture this. It's December 2012. A brutal crime happens in Delhi. That doesn't just shock the country, it sparks a fire. It becomes the moment that forced the entire Indian legal system to look in the mirror and face its biggest failings, leading to a truly radical overhaul. To really understand just how huge these legal changes were, we have to go back to the incident itself and the incredibly powerful, immediate aftermath that grabbed the entire world's attention. Okay, so it all happened incredibly fast. On December 16th, a 23-year-old student was horrifically assaulted on a bus in Delhi. The sheer violence of it sent shockwaves across India. Almost immediately, massive protests erupted nationwide. The public demand for justice was just deafening. It was so loud and so sustained that the government had no choice but to act fast. Just a week after the incident, a high-level committee was formed. And you have to understand, this wasn't some quiet, top-down government reform. No, this was a direct response to thousands upon thousands of ordinary citizens taking to the streets and demanding change. That pressure led directly to the formation of the now famous Justice Verma Committee.
So, who do you get to fix a broken system? Well, they brought in the heavy hitters. We're talking a powerhouse trio led by the former Chief Justice of India, J.S. Verma. Their mission was crystal clear and incredibly urgent. Take all that public anger and channel it into real, practical, legal reforms that would actually protect women.
And get this, the committee didn't just lock themselves in a room. In a pretty incredible display of public participation, they received over 70,000 suggestions. Not just from lawyers, but from regular citizens, from activists, from all over the country. This was, in a very real way, the people of India helping to rewrite their own laws. All that public input just fueled this immense sense of urgency. I mean, the committee worked around the clock. We're talking 30 days straight to analyze the problems and come up with solutions. They were determined not to let this moment get lost in bureaucratic red tape. So what came out of that intense 30-day sprint? A massive 652-page report. But this wasn't just some dusty document meant for a shelf. It became the actual blueprint for India's new laws on sexual assault. It was a landmark document that was about to change everything.
So how on earth do you take all that information, all that public anger, and turn it into real actionable change? Well, it turns out the committee's entire massive report was guided by 4 simple yet incredibly powerful questions.
The first, and, maybe the most fundamental question they asked, was simply, why? Why did the system we already had in place fail so catastrophically? What was fundamentally broken?
And what they found was, well, it was a total system failure. It wasn't just one thing. You had legal loopholes that criminals could just waltz right through. You had laws that looked good on paper but were rarely enforced. You had police who were often insensitive or just plain unhelpful. And of course, a justice system that was so agonizingly slow, it often felt like no justice at all.
Okay, next up, they had to tackle the very language of the law itself. Their question was, how can we update the legal definition of sexual offenses so it actually reflects the reality of these crimes in the modern world? Their answer was to completely move beyond an outdated definition of rape. The law, they said, needed to include a much wider range of sexual acts. And this is so critical. They recommended reframing sexual assault as a crime against a person's bodily integrity, their physical and mental self, not as a crime against their family's honor. That was a huge philosophical shift. The third big question tackled a problem that, let's be honest, everyone in India knew existed. The system was just too slow. It was unresponsive. So how could they actually fix the machinery of justice itself to make it work for victims? And their recommendations were super direct and practical. First, make it mandatory for police to file an official complaint, what's known as an FIR. No more turning victims away. Second, create special fast-track courts just for these cases. Then, put everyone on a clock, strict timelines for investigations and for trials. And importantly, hold police officers personally accountable if they drop the ball. All right, so all of this work, the public protests, the committee's exhaustive report, it all led directly to the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013. This is where the rubber hits the road, where we see the concrete changes that are now the law of the land in India.
For the very first time in India, stalking became a specific, punishable crime. The law now clearly says that repeatedly following someone or trying to contact them when they've made it clear they're not interested is illegal. This was a massive step forward.
And it was the same story for voyeurism. This was also defined and criminalized for the first time, making it illegal to watch or take pictures of someone in a private moment without their consent. It closed a huge, dangerous gap in privacy and safety laws.
But the reforms didn't stop there. The 2013 Act was packed with other game-changing rules. Acid attacks were finally recognized as their own specific, heinous crime with really harsh penalties. Sexual harassment was formally defined and criminalized. The age of consent was raised to 18 across the board, and a life sentence was clarified to mean exactly that: prison for the rest of your natural life.
So here we are, more than a decade later. What is the real, lasting impact of all these changes? How does the Nirbhaya legacy actually affect Indian society today?
Well, the before and after picture is pretty stark. It's like night and day. Before, police could literally just refuse to file a complaint. Now, it's mandatory. Before, things like stalking were often just ignored or dismissed. Now, they're serious crimes. The famously slow crawl of justice is now being tackled by fast-track courts. It's a fundamental shift.
But ultimately, the impact goes way beyond just the law books. This case forced the national conversation. It completely changed the way society, the media, and the justice system talk about and view crimes against women. It was, without a doubt, a social turning point.
And that leaves us with a really big question to think about. The laws are on the books. They're stronger and clearer than they've ever been. But has the deeper conversation, the one about safety, respect, and consent, truly transformed society? That is the ongoing legacy of the Nirbhaya effect.